There's some sad news today. Smithfield hams are now going to China.
What?
The Chinese are buying the company.
I saw the headlines, but...
Doesn't that break you quick? Wow. Smithfield, the famous Smithfield hams Smithfield Foods will now belong to the Chinese. They're taking over.
Wow, that's a big deal. They've been here for a long, long time.
Big deal. Larry Pope, the CEO, is a Christian nice guy, and he said it's a good deal. It's all friendly, so we'll see. But Smithfield hams.
Hopefully the ham will stay as wonderful as always.
Honghua ham. It just doesn't quite sound the same.
Ham.
Yeah, it doesn't sound as good. Well, the civil war in Syria has already killed more than, what is it, 80,000 people? 80,000. And now it threatens to spill over into Israel.
Israelis are already practicing defense drills in case of deadly battles, including attacks with weapons of mass destruction. Chris Mitchell has that story from Jerusalem.
Israelis headed for bomb shelters as part of a nationwide drill to practice what to do in case of war.
When it's a real time, then they know exactly what to do and they won't be frightened or terrified.
Dubbed Turning Point 7, the three-day drill simulated rocket and missile attacks on Israeli cities. That includes chemical and other non-conventional strikes. The drill is annual, but the government held this one with tensions high on the Israeli-Syrian border. Israel is also concerned that Hezbollah or other jihadi terror groups could acquire Syrian chemical weapons.
This is one of the worst scenarios that Israel could think about.
More than 80,000 people have been killed so far in Syria's two-year civil war. But Israeli intelligence expert Jacques Niria told CBN News that neither those loyal to Syrian President Bashar Assad nor those opposing him are winning.
So we have a stalemate on the ground, which means that this civil war could last for several years.
To complicate matters, Syrian opposition forces have been overrun by thousands of jihadis who want to re-establish the caliphate.
So they want an Islamic State 100%. The first thing they did in Homs, when they took one of the quarters of Homs, was to ask all the Christians who are living there just to leave town.
Niria says there are two possible outcomes. Assad survives and his allies Hezbollah and Iran are strengthened, or he falls and the jihadis take over.
One alternative is a nightmare. The second one is a worse nightmare.
The U.S. and Europe say they are now working to bolster the rebel forces, but some say that would be a mistake.
When you take a dictatorship out, you create a political vacuum. Who's using this political vacuum is the Muslim extremist. And that's the scenario that we saw happening in Egypt and Yemen and Tunis and so on and so forth. The same scenario will take place in Syria, and this will be a much bigger mistake.
Israeli officials say they'll stay out of the conflict unless they need to defend their citizens. And Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu warned that Israel will continue its efforts to stop Syria from transferring weapons to Hezbollah. Despite all the talk of war, many Israelis say they're not concerned.
Israel is a really strong country and we can beat everyone.
I'm afraid I don't want to be the war.
I'm not afraid yet, but I'm not happy about it. Really not happy about it because we understand that it's very dangerous.
Still, while most Israelis are hoping for the calm to continue, they know they must prepare for war. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
It's a confused mess, and it's a thing the United States should stay out of. The rebels are now fighting among themselves. The Kurds don't like the jihadis who want to establish an Islamic State. So there are various, the Shias and the Sunnis fight each other. The reigning party are the Alawites. It's a small sect of the, I guess, Sunnis. But in any event, the Alawites have held control and they've held in check the Muslim Brotherhood and other extremist groups. But this thing is coming apart. But which side do we go in on? And the question is, you help one side win and then you wish you'd never done it. Anyhow, at home, the Attorney General is on the hot seat. He's facing rising political heat from both conservatives and liberals. Lee Webb has that story from the CBN newsroom. Here's Lee.
Pat, Republicans on the House Judiciary Committee are looking into whether the Attorney General, Eric Holder, committed perjury. In a letter to Holder Wednesday, they challenged his testimony 2 weeks ago when he testified under oath before lawmakers. Holder said he did not know anything about prosecuting journalists who might report classified information. But days later, reports came out that Holder had signed off on a search warrant of the emails and phone records of Fox News correspondent James Rosen. Some leading liberals already are calling for Holder to be fired. Holder plans to meet with media representatives today to talk about that issue, but some organizations like the Associated Press, the New York Times, and CNN are not taking part. They don't like the fact that the meeting is supposed to be off the record. At least 2 congressional panels are planning more hearings next week on the IRS scandal. They want more information on why the agency held up tax-exempt applications for Tea Party and other conservative political groups. A House subcommittee is going to call the new acting IRS commissioner. The American Center for Law and Justice has filed a federal lawsuit on behalf of 25 Tea Party and conservative groups against the Attorney General, Treasury Secretary, as well as the IRS. That lawsuit claims the Obama administration violated the political rights of Americans. Well, Americans who buy their own health insurance could be in for a shock this fall. Many existing insurance policies could get canceled thanks to Obamacare. Remember this promise that President Obama made during the debate leading up to the vote? If you like your health care plan, you'll be able to keep your health care plan, period. No one will take it away, no matter what. But now, state insurance regulators say that's not true. Many existing policies do not satisfy the basic demands of Obamacare. The National Association of Insurance Commissioners says many carriers plan to cancel policies and issue new ones because it's easier than changing existing policies. About 14 million Americans purchase their health policies individually, Pat.
You know, this thing is a nightmare, and ladies and gentlemen, we warned about it, but somehow they jammed it through Congress, and the president signed it. He just wanted to have it, and that was the whole part of his administration. It would forget jobs, forget all these other things, the mounting debt, et cetera. Let's get this health care. Well, the government now has control of it, and at this point, it is a disaster. As one senator said, it's a train wreck waiting to happen. It's coming up, and it's just a mess. People's health care is being canceled, their insurance canceled, others are having to pay additional fees, their new taxes, and nobody is quite sure what it is. And guess what? It's supposed to be controlled by none other than the lady who was in charge of the scandal at the IRS. That doesn't sound like a prescription for anything good. Some of the labor unions are now beginning to come out against it, and the train wreck could be the congressional Democrats coming into this next election. Lee?
Well, Pat, more severe weather across much of the country is expected from Texas to North Dakota, and forecasters warn that the atmosphere is primed to produce violent tornadoes. Charlene Israel has that story.
After a wicked week of storms, still no let-up in the severe weather across the plains and the Midwest. The National Weather Service warning today that the greatest threat for tornadoes will be in Oklahoma and Missouri. Some of the same communities devastated by the storm that hit Oklahoma last week are once again in danger.
I think it's coming our way. Hopefully we have a few hours before it gets here.
Forecasters say the storms are developing ahead of a cold front. The clash between the cool air and the warm, humid air already over much of the Midwest creates an environment ripe for tornadoes. It also brings lots of rain and massive flooding. Iowa has seen the worst. Record high water levels have already been reached on several rivers in the state. But there's also flooding up and down the Mississippi as rain swells the mighty river. The water is rising in unexpected places as water rushes through Chicago neighborhoods after a major storm. This burst of water broke through the doors of an Illinois college. The storm front is expected to move east over the weekend. But parts of New York and New England are already experiencing severe weather.
Every car is pulled over and put their hazards on. It's definitely in no condition to be driving out at this point.
Strong winds brought down trees in Rotterdam, New York, damaging homes, cars, and bringing down power lines. Charlene Israel, CBN News.
Amazing video there. Operation Blessing, though, is still in Moore, Oklahoma, helping people recover from the massive tornado that struck there last week. OB is working with local churches, hundreds of volunteers, and a team of associates from Home Depot, which donated supplies. The pastor and members of Highland Baptist Church have been serving round the clock since the deadly tornado, some despite losing their own homes. OB's Jody Geddes spoke at a special service the church held outside on Sunday.
This is a special church. This ministry team, Dina and Pastor Dave, have really just been an awesome example of what a pastoral leadership team should look like, and Pastor Ken. But also, I have to say, the whole body of this church has just touched our hearts.
Even hurricane victims in Breezy Point, New York, are sending aid to the people of Moore, Oklahoma through Operation Blessing. Breezy Point, of course, community leaders there donated more than $8,000 in gift cards to residents in Moore. And it's amazing, Pat, considering they're still recovering from Hurricane Sandy.
Well, it's the beautiful spirit of giving that we have in this country, and it's one of the traditions and one of the nice things about America. But my hat's off to Home Depot. I think we've had 350 volunteers out there working. You saw some of those orange shirts helping to rebuild. Tragedy of massive proportions. I don't think anybody can conceive of what it's like to have everything that you own just suddenly taken away from you. I remember during Katrina, I flew in a helicopter over some of those areas, and those houses that had been beautiful houses were just like a pile of sticks. And then you go down and on the ground and see people who had been overcome with flood. Well, it's the same thing in Oklahoma. It's just devastating. And the volunteers that are coming, it's a wonderful thing. So if you want to help, Operation Blessing was there on day one of that tragedy, and if you want to participate, just it's Disaster Relief Fund, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia. That's for Operation Blessing. That's on the scene. The call number is 1-800-759-0700. So we're there in your name, in the name of the Lord, and our thanks to the churches, the volunteers, and many of the American businesses that want to help.
IRS audits of Christian and conservative groups and the birth control mandate in Obamacare represent unprecedented threats to religious liberty in America. That's the opinion of Reverend Samuel Rodriguez. He's the president of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference. Rodriguez joins other faith leaders and officials for the 2013 National Religious Freedom Conference here in Washington today. The all-day conference brings together representatives of all major branches of Christianity, as well as Jews, Mormons, Muslims, and Hindus. France broadcast its first gay marriage on public television. The wedding took place in the French city of Montpellier. The mayor officiated the ceremony, calling it a, quote, historic moment. It was held under tight police surveillance. Thousands of opponents of the law have been protesting in Paris. Some demonstrations have become violent, ending in riots. Don't forget, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com